What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Aushoopers TV. Me and Hesh are back. We have a guest on today, NBL next star and part of the Sydney Kings. He's eligible for the draft this year. He's been mocked quite a bit into some NBA drafts across multiple platforms. Alex Toohey out of ACT. Huge player, one of the best defensive players for the Kings this year. And hopefully we see him in the draft in June. Hesh, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Good to be back. A lot of basketball that we need to cover. I know there's some guests and got some cool ones lined up, so I'm excited to have Alex on, man.
100%. We'll get right into the interview.
Hello,
What's up, Alex? How you doing?
I'm good. How you guys going?
Yeah, not too bad. Appreciate you jumping on. I want to introduce you to Hesh real quick. He's going to be co-hosting the show with me today.
No
How you
worries.
doing?
What's up, man?
How are you?
Are you
I'm
just
good.
are you just out in LA at the moment?
Yeah, out in LA training right now. Got
Yeah.
me and Travers is here and Spurgeon, new King signing in the house, and he's training. It's pretty nice.
Nice. That's the first thing I kind of wanted to ask you. You training with J Law. How'd you kind of get that connection with him?
Uh so I think kind of my agent set it up, which is pretty fortunate. They live in the same spot, and I think he's had like back to when Jonah Bolden was kind of doing his draft stuff, and I think he represented J Law as a player. So he's been doing his clients pre-draft stuff. So there was a connection over time, and then just it's obviously been working in some way with like Giddy and Dyson, the recent NBA players. So keep
Nice.
working with that, and hopefully pay off.
100%. For those who don't know, J Law's a big trainer in the States, and he has a cool gym in Irvine, I think it is, in LA. He gets quite a few big NBA players, and he's one of the most renowned coaches in the States. Who's the best player that's come through? I saw photos of you playing with Zach LaVine. Is there any cool stories of big NBA players coming through the gym?
We had Kay Cunningham's here right now, so he starts working out as we finish up, which is pretty cool. And then some other guys like Stanley Johnson played some 3-on-3 with him, and he's a bit older now, but just cool. Probably Zach's probably the biggest name so far, but I think Clay Thompson might come out at some point, which is pretty cool. Just seeing those guys on TV and then training with them one day is pretty funny.
100%. What happened with Zach LaVine? You get any good stops?
Yeah. Last year, when I worked out in last year, I wasn't allowed to play any offense, so
Yeah.
I was just chasing around screens and getting hip checked by J Law on the screens. But like even just that, super cool. And then he's injured right now, come back from his foot injury. But if he's back healthy, I'll be able to play some offense against him, which would be pretty fun.
100%. I want to kind of talk about some Sydney King stuff. Obviously, you mentioned Jason Spurgeon, who kind of grew up in Queensland. I think he played for Toowoomba. He's obviously signed with the Sydney Kings with you guys next season. And the Sydney Kings are going a kind of young route. I feel like they got brought in Kelly LePepe. They brought in Tyler Robertson as well, who's out of college. What are your thoughts on next season and how are things looking over there in Sydney?
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, like Gorge, I think starts all of that, and yeah, Gorge and X is your first two signings. It's not a bad start having like the most winningest coach in NBL history and MVP and two-time champion, which is pretty sick. So getting that, I think, starts it. And I think from that, obviously last year wasn't great results-wise, but we had so many guys that were at the end of contract, so kind of had a fresh slate to look at what we want to keep around and pieces we want to try and bring in. So I think we had everything we could to try and get back to that winning culture. And I think that started with the guys I mentioned before. But I think it's cool seeing the young guys because I think that's one thing is like teams, I feel like it's hard for them to have a core group of guys. Like you look at Melbourne had it a few years back and like Jock goes to the NBA, Delhi gets called up to the NBA again. So I think for us getting like some big 3-year deals like X, Bull, and then those guys coming out of college, I think helps you build that culture. And I think the Kings in the past had been kind of 1 or 2 years with a coach and then they'd go somewhere else and then you bring one in and it's hard to keep a culture when players are getting shifted around and it's kind of just the management that stays the same. So I think having like Gorge on a 3-year and having so many players signing longer deals now, I think it's a good chance for us to kind of reestablish what the Kings culture is with so many people there for a while. We can really figure it out.
100%.
That's good, man. Just wanted to jump in there. talk to us a little bit about your relationship with Gorge. Have you had much to do with him in the past, and how's that been going? Obviously, you alluded to the fact he's the most winningest coach in NBL history, and our greatest coach of all time, I'd say, Australia's greatest coach and current Boomers coach. How's that relationship building, and how's it been?
Yeah, no, it's been good. I think met him I think a few years ago that he was just popping by Canberra talking to some of the coaches there and kind of brief introduction, and then he came to, I think it was like a coaching clinic at the AIS when I was there, and got to work with him a little bit there, which was cool. And playing in the Boomers stuff, obviously it wasn't the kind of World Cup or Olympic Boomers squad, but just those kind of FIBA windows was pretty cool. And then he's probably watching all those games and breaking them down, so I think he would have seen me a bit there. So saw him again a bit after that, and kind of had a good connection with him. And then obviously went into the NBL route and had a bit of correspondence with him around some Boomer stuff, and then kind of got in touch with him after he got announced. And it was pretty funny because obviously older now, the way he texts is pretty straightforward, a lot of dot points and a lot of short sentences, but it was great. And then we got on the phone and kind of talked about next season. So yeah, it was great. And then obviously he's got a lot of stuff on his mind beforehand, the Olympics and stuff, but I think just he'll be nitpicking about what he wants this year, and I'm sure that it's been proven, so it'll be pretty easy to jump on board.
Yeah,
100%.
man. Well, to let you know, I'm in Sydney at the moment, Alex, and I've had a bit to do with him and T, the assistant coach. They're doing this. Basically, Gord was saying that he observed Melbourne. What they do is they have this big culture of all the pros working out with like the young up and coming college guys and all the high school guys. So they're trying to bring that to Sydney a little bit. So I've had the opportunity to observe a few of those workouts. They go once a week or twice a week now, and there's some high school kids, some college guys that are in their off seasons, like Bulls in town, contracted guys. And when I was watching Gorge, man, like 3 hours straight, he just coaches the hell out of it, man. Like he doesn't stop. And he's probably the oldest coach in the league, isn't he? He would be. What is he, mid
Probably,
70s?
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, definitely,
He's
I reckon.
Very much.
he's on his feet, like he's limping around the court, but he's like demonstrating everything. Like I was just like impressed, man. I didn't think that, you just assume, or maybe not assume, but he could get away with anything. Like he would just have to show up and it's gorgeous, so he could do it. But I feel like his passion and everything he brings to the table is like just exactly what Sydney need, I reckon. I think it'll be exciting for you guys.
No, definitely. And I think like he's kind of obsessed with it in like the fact that it's just his life now. And he's I think I saw him like watching some NBL one games and that sort of thing. And I think the average fan would probably expect coaches of that caliber to just relax in their off season. But like the amount that he was even around a little bit last year, like coming to watch our Kings games when he was in town, and just like one of those coaches that watches like basketball everywhere, and obviously he's coached around the world, but just obsessed with it. And I think it's obviously gonna pay off hopefully this year with the Olympic squad, and then obviously us following that.
100%. Reflect on your first year as a Sydney King. Obviously, it's your first year in the NBL. There was a lot of bright spots for you guys. Obviously, you saw your name on some mock drafts across many platforms. Reflect on your first year as a Sydney King in the NBL.
Yeah, I loved it. I think kind of getting into that environment straight away, and everyone was super welcoming, and the staff and stuff. It was a real easy transition. Like preseason was tough, like going against those bigger bodies, and obviously there are a few NBL players in NBL One East, but playing against obviously the best of the best was a bit of a wake up call at the physicality, but kind of getting into the season, played well enough to earn myself a starting spot for most games, which is pretty cool. And then obviously there are a few injuries last, so I got provided a bit of extra opportunity, but I felt like I took it overall. I think I started pretty strong, shot the ball well, and then kind of in the middle few games had an extended period where I was a bit average. But like just talking to guys like Denzel and Jonah that had been in the NBA and just kind of asking them about when their shot's not right and things they do to try and get themselves out of a slump, you could call it. But just like talking to them and talking to Brucey, guys that have been in the league for a while, and just trying to understand like that's what it is. But I think I figured a way out to kind of get myself out of that bad cycle of games, and then kind of picked it up towards the end.
Yep.
So I think it was a bit of a chaotic season in terms of how we started and then finished. But I think like overall, you can't try and change anything because I learned so much from being in that environment and having so many guys around me. And I think now it's just kind of hopefully have a bit of an elevated role coming into the next season and just know what it takes to win and understand when things don't look so good, how to try and change them.
100%. I want to bring up Jalen Galloway. He somehow gets brought up in our podcast.
Yeah.
But you guys were a young duo on the Sydney Kings team. I thought you guys played your best defense when it was you and him playing the 3-4, the 2-3. I thought that was a really good defensive matchup against other teams. Talk about your relationship with him and kind of you saw him go to Milwaukee as well, which is huge for JG. Talk about how you guys kind of thrived off each other throughout the season.
Yeah, no, I knew JG a bit beforehand. He was at the AS for a little bit, and anyone that knows him, like he's just a super quiet guy.
Yeah.
But like he's got a great personality when you get him to open up. So a lot of joking about just me and him, how we had a relationship with each other. We were staying in the same apartment block, so we'd see each other all the time, playing video games together. But I love that guy. Thinking about the memories I had with him on and off the court was just so cool. And then seeing him get a G League contract was super cool, and like how he worked so hard in the season and how he took that leap from his seasons before that to like he obviously should have been the most improved. I think everyone knows that. The jump that he had to go from a DP to an NBA player in 2 or 3 years is pretty nuts. So just seeing that, but like I still talk to him all the time and call him and like just hearing him how his lockers are next to Dame and Giannis and just all that stuff that he's in that world now is pretty sick. And like talking to him about how once you get there, like the NBA is not that much different to the NBL and like the standards and stuff. So all the chats like that is super cool to realize that hopefully I can get there soon as well.
Yeah, that was my next question. How does someone like that, who obviously you've grown up in the system with or competed with and against and been on teams with, when they make that jump and the goal is for all you guys, young guys, I'm sure, is to play in the NBA. Does it is it what's the mentality that you have? Is it kind of like refreshing to know, all right, I'm really close and I'm almost there, or is it a bit frustrating that you think far out, like why? How do you kind of approach it when someone that you're so close with can make the jump?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I think obviously you obviously want what's best for the people close to you, and you obviously want to be the best for yourself. But I think a funny story, like the first training we had in our off season, we didn't have the full team. Like I don't think our imports got in yet, but it was all the Aussie guys there and did a workout. And then I hadn't spoken to JG or anything for about a year when I saw him at the AS, and we started shooting around the hoop. He started shooting a free throw, and the first thing he said is, "Do you think you're starting at the 3? Hell no." He said, "I'm going to take that starting 3 spot no matter what." And I said, "Nah, all right, you're going to come off the bench, but that's fine." And then obviously DJ Ho got injured, so I played more of the 4. But like, just joking around with him about that kind of stuff and seeing where he is. And obviously, he does some things really great, like athleticism and finishing, but I think I do things good as well. So I think seeing that level of where he's at and where I need to be at to kind of get to that NBA position, I think it's super cool. And seeing the little things that he like picked up on he's basically just said, as long as you can shoot it, you can play in the NBA. You just need to shoot it and play defense, and that's about it. Everything else will come after a few years. So yeah, just talking to him and obviously happy for him, but hopefully he can get there with him one day.
100%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are draft eligible. What are the next sort of few months look like and, preparing for June and what's the schedule looking like?
Yeah, it'll be just a lot of training right now. Probably not going to put my name in this year. So I'll be coming back to Sydney, which will be good. So just a lot of training, connecting with the Kings and working on how we're going to play this year and connecting with the guys. So a lot in that aspect, and then just training. Hopefully, work on my body, keep eating right, and everything to kind of get myself ready for the season coming up. But I'll be in America for a while until probably start of July.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So for the regular fan, I guess, that just reads something about a guy declaring for the draft or not declaring for the draft, how does that on the back end or from an inside perspective, how does that look for you? Obviously, if you're not going to declare for the draft, does it mean you still get to work out with some NBA teams, or kind of are you in touch with them right now, or is it just kind of off the cards and you're just focusing on the Kings type of thing?
Yeah, it's pretty much working with the Kings right now. I think obviously being pro, you get a bit more freedom with the agent and NBA teams, so it's lucky in that regard. So I feel like my agent's been sorting most of that stuff out throughout the season. So it's not really like we get to a point and then they give all the feedback. Then it's pretty gradual what teams are thinking. So then it wasn't really like a sudden I'm either going to declare this year or I'm not. So it was kind of reading how I was playing and reading what the feedback is, and then ultimately came the decision that coming back's probably best. And I think there's obviously chance you can get picked like late second round or early second round, but you kind of don't really want to gamble on that early, especially having a few more years of draft eligibility. So the hope is come back, have a bigger role this year, and then hopefully be a first round pick, maybe higher coming into next year.
100%.
Sure.
Obviously, you saw your name on a few mock drafts, and it's a bit surreal seeing that. Everyone's dreams to make the NBA. What's the sort of like feeling when you see your name, getting projected to the Celtics or the Suns and stuff like that, and seeing your name on the big boards?
No, it's hilarious seeing myself up there, and obviously, like when you're a kid, you look at the drafts and think, "Oh, it's so far away." And when you get older, you realize it's a bit closer, but it still doesn't feel like it's quite real. The fact that I could be picked up next year, which is pretty funny feeling. But I think just talking to the guys that have been picked and how they went about it and how they just stayed composed is pretty cool. And my friends will send me videos of them looking at random 2K uploaded drafts and playing with
Yeah.
me. My name's spelled wrong because I'm in the second round, so they don't actually know who I am. That kind of stuff. That's funny. But I think as of now, I see it as a long way away, and then hopefully towards the end of next season, it'll probably be more of a reality that could happen.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen that uploaded draft actually. It's like Alex Toby or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
it's funny. There's a lot of guys in the draft that you got to play against at the Nike Hoop Summit. You were on the international team with guys like Zachary Rees-Archet, who's a top two, top three projected pick at the moment out of France, Yves Missi out of Baylor. And you played guys like Ron Holland, Jared McCain, etc., who are big names in the draft right now. Talk about that experience and some of the things you took away from that.
No, that was sick. I think like the Hoop Summit is one of those stages that you look at as being world class. Obviously, getting guys around the world, and hard to play against national level players if it's not the World Cup or Junior World Cups or that sort of thing. So, had that experience was super cool. Like the whole way everything ran was great, and meeting guys from around the world and playing against the American team was super cool, and like seeing Bronny and LeBron and Draymond courtside, that was crazy. I was very scared playing in front of them, but my favorite thing I say is that my biggest takeaway was that I got a bunch of gear because I didn't play very much.
Yeah.
So it's funny seeing that, and obviously like whatever it is, it's whatever. I think they got to change a bunch of stuff with it, but overall it was sick and like seeing those guys, and I think Zach, I think he'll probably be the number one pick, and seeing him and Alex Sarr is terrific, but I think like Zach is his next level in my opinion. So I think he'll probably be number one, and I think Sarr will be number two.
Yeah. Um, Zachary Rees is pretty good. There's not many people that haven't mocked one, so that's a pretty bold take, I reckon.
Mm.
Do you still, this might be a silly question, but do you still have the Nike Hoop Summit with the Australia and your name on the back?
I do have that at home in the bottom of a cupboard.
Yeah,
Pretty
it's a cool
cool.
jersey.
Like I said, the gear I got was probably the highlight.
Yeah. Um, Talk about ACT. I feel like a lot of the ACT guys kind of embrace the ACT kid, the Canberra kid. Talk about growing up in ACT and representing ACT at the Nationals.
No, it was I loved it. I think obviously it's a smaller state and that sort of thing. So we had like the same like same 8 guys from when we were under 12 to when we were under 20s, which was super cool. And I think obviously it's hard being a small pool, not having that many guys to pick from. It has a lot of disadvantages, but in terms of like that tight knit group we have, and a lot of those guys are playing in the Canberra Gunners right now in the ML1 East, which is cool. But like we had such a good core group with like me, Bowen Beatty, Cam Pender, Lockie Smith. This goes on, but we played with each other like we were best friends for 6 years, traveling to Albury, driving up to Sydney, all that kind of thing. So I think that was probably the most special part of it. I think a lot of guys that play in those rep teams that even if they don't have success, they just play with their mates. So it's super cool. But I think that ACT team that we had when we won a medal and then lost a few semis, I think that probably be the best ACT team we'll see for a long time. But and then obviously you have the AIS, which is cool. So my brother trained there and my brother played for ACT. So I got to see him and his group go through. But I think like Canberra basketball's it's only going to get better. But I think like the talent we got now, we got a few guys in the COE, a few girls as well. But I think like Canberra basketball's so underrated, and like obviously Paddy Mills came from is probably the biggest name, but hopefully add a few more names to that list. But like the basketball in Canberra, like everyone gets around it. We don't have many courts. If you can't get into the AAS, there's like 2 courts that are open, maybe 5 if you get into the other spot. But I think like we need more courts. You go to Vic and they have like 16 court facilities everywhere you look. So I think once they get that, I think Canberra, like the market's there, and I think everyone gets around it.
It's quite insane. You said you medaled. I can't remember what year. Was it your 18s or 20s when you guys medaled?
Yeah, top age 18's got a bronze medal, but
That's pretty crazy to medal over other states, you know, the population difference and the access to stuff they have over there, and the fact that you guys medaled is pretty nuts if you have to think about it. But yeah.
How's your journey through the AIS system? When did you kind of transition from rep basketball in ACT and then get scouted by the AIS, and when did you kind of make that transition, and how was that experience for you?
So it started. I played under 16s. We had under 16s in Darwin, and I think the COE coaches go to all the tournaments from 16s up. So I think they were in the crowd, which is like back then. I was like an NBA scouts watching you pretty much. So that was like the coolest thing to have. So they were around there, and obviously being in Canberra, I was very grateful to have them kind of be able to monitor my growth a bit more clearly. So played the top age 16s, and then our bottom age 18s got cancelled with COVID, I'm pretty sure. And then we had our top age, and just before that, I think when it was COVID, we were kind of starting a lockdown and that sort of thing. But I was playing in the Prem 1 league in Canberra, and before COVID happened, they had an ADC, one of the development camps where they get all the guys in from different ages, and had one of those camps. And Toohey was like Giddy, Mojave King, Blake Jones, those guys. So we got split up into teams and played in the Canberra Classic, like this Easter tournament, and played pretty well in that. I think we were up against COE at halftime or something with like me, Evan Kilminster, all these young guys that we just still in high school, so we were feeling it. And then eventually they got back and won. But I think that was kind of the first point that I played at a stage where they kind of respected it enough. And then from there, they kind of started talking to me, and obviously being in Canberra, I got to start and go and train with them. And I think Proc got there a few months before, and then I came to train with them and just stayed training with them. And then I think just before I was about to go into grade 11 or grade 10, I think it's grade 11, they kind of called me up and said, like, we'd like to offer you a scholarship. So that was surreal. And then kind of had to move across to the city, which is pretty funny talking about it, like 15 minutes away, but got to move out and live in the AS, which is so cool. And obviously being from Canberra, having Bowen Beatty was there with me as well, and he was from Canberra. It was unreal. And the group we had at that COE, I think, is, if not the best of all time, we'll see soon, but I think at least a top 3 group they'll have ever, hopefully.
100%.
And so then after the COE, obviously you have a successful COE career and started rising up the ranks, and potential and upside started to increase. Then it became, I guess, decision about what you wanted to do. And there was it must have been tough as a young kid trying to decide. Obviously you committed to the college route initially, and then, at the last second you decommitted and went to the Kings. Talk to us a little bit about that whole period and the ups and downs of that emotionally and everything that the pressure that comes with it and how you came to those decisions.
The college process was pretty crazy. Kind of growing up in Canberra, playing in front of the most people we'd have was probably both teams' parents in the crowd. So we went over to America for a tournament with the NBA Academy and played some high schools out there and kind of started to get known a little bit. And then the coaches weren't allowed to contact you throughout the 7-day process. They were just supposed to talk to the NBA managers and staff and coaches and that sort of thing. And then played well. We came second in the tournament, and then like that night, like the phone just started calling and messages coming like, hey, like coach from Duke here, coach from Michigan here, coach from Virginia Tech, just all these schools that I'm kind of like, man, like this is nuts. You watch these guys on TV and all these schools are reaching out. It's a bit overwhelming. So I was kind of just kind of left my phone sit for a while, and then the following day kind of went through and kind of thought, all right, I think I could be at this level and hopefully maybe reach this level in a few months or that sort of thing. So kind of narrowed the list down, and there's a period of maybe like 6 months to kind of go home, organize Zoom calls, wake up early, call schools on the East Coast, West Coast, that sort of thing, and then did some visits. Just before I was about to commit, I think I visited 4 schools. I visited Davidson, Villanova, Michigan, and Gonzaga, and then came back, sat in it for a while, committed, and then like was comfortable with that, and then kind of started asking questions about roles and that sort of thing. And then obviously the transfer portal came in, so some things changed there with their roster, and then the Kings and the NBL Next Stars had always been reaching out as an option. So kind of reassessed my options and realized that the Next Stars program was a lead and had an opening at the Kings in my position. So kind of all signs pointed to heading back and staying in Australia. So decided to come back and then committed to the Kings, and it's been great, and hopefully play another good season next year. But like it was pretty hectic in terms of like the amount of calls and information, and you're trying to think about little differences in schools and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad it's out of the way, but it was exciting in a way. Obviously, it feels nice to know that a lot of people want to have you in their team, but I think overall made the right decision and don't want to look back.
I find that Aussies tend to, I mean, it's just culturally so different. Recruiting is just
Mm-hmm.
in America. It's like coaches are shameless and they'll say and sell a dream and say whatever they need to just shelve you on
Yeah.
and have the rights to you and own you for the next 4 years on a scholarship. And it's, I mean, it comes with some good and some bad, but I find that a lot of Aussie kids that I've worked with and been around with the college ranks, it's like that's the biggest difference. It's like suddenly in Australia, there's no recruitment. Like you try out for a couple of reps,
Yeah.
and COE might come knocking on your door if you're good enough, but that's about it. Over there, it's like if you're a prospect in any way, it's like learning to talk to coaches and how to navigate that whole thing. I'm sure that would have been a huge challenge for you.
No, 100%. I think like I went to Michigan and they had posters on my bed, like thinking that the American kids probably love this. Like there's posters on the bed, like photos of yourself, and I'm kind of sitting there like, all right, this is cool. I don't really care about all this flashy stuff. Like I want to know what's the basketball like, what's the school like, what's the staff like, that sort of thing. So I think it's just like it's so different over here and training over here and seeing the kids. Like kids are 7 here, 8 here, and they used to have like a personal trainer they go to after school and all this stuff. But I'm so glad the way that we do in Australia. You play 3 sports growing up, probably good at a few, and then you kind of pick one and stick with it. And like just so laid back in Australia versus America. Guys are trying to think about their future when they're coming into like primary school and that sort of thing. I think it's just crazy. And then I love it when you get there and all those kids that did all that stuff and you just feel better than them. That's the best feeling when you just laid back, just having fun, playing school basketball and all that kind of thing. So like, I love the way we do it in Australia, and I hope it never changes.
100%. I agree with that. They're starting them young. We'll finish off this with a subject we do is 10 quick questions. Can be random questions about anything, rapid fire questions. First question is, what's your favorite basketball memory?
Probably winning a bronze medal with the ST boys.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Nice. All right, number 2, best coach you've had in your career so far. Can even be one
Robbie
game.
McKinley.
Yeah, one game. You know, a season, whatever.
Probably Robbie McKinley and Ash Arnott. Good
Nice.
times.
Who's the toughest guy you've ever had to guard and why?
You guys know who Frank Nitti is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
legendary,
I
isn't
had to guard him, and he's not in the NBA, and I don't know if he plays pro anywhere, but dude was crazy. Like the dribble move he was doing, and he has an ugly shot, but he has an ugly shot that goes in. So crazy moves, like the shiftiness was insane, and he just never missed. So he's probably the hardest guy I had to guard, and that wasn't even in proper game. That was just in pickup. So yeah,
I was at a pickup when he was playing you once. I think you blocked him once or twice in that game, but I don't think you were
yeah.
guarding him the whole time.
Nah, I couldn't do that.
All right, here's an interesting one. Obviously, Jalen Adams, your teammate from last year, playing
Mhm.
one, top of the key, once, 10 possessions. How many buckets does he get on you? Got to give me a number. I don't want to hear a range. I don't want to hear gray area. I want a black and white number.
Probably 5,
That's
50%.
a fair answer.
Yeah.
It's a fair answer. Wonder what his answer would be.
I have to ask him.
What's your favorite hoop shoe of all time?
KD 16s right now. I
Yeah,
love him. I'm waiting for the KD 17s, but yeah, KD 16.
yeah.
All right, obviously, you know, where we're filming this right now, I'm sure you saw the result of the NBA game just there. But who you got winning the chip this year?
Dallas. I think the
Wow.
East is so bad right now. Like Indiana, I think Indiana is such a terrible basketball team, and I can't stand to watch them play at the moment. And to me, it looks like the Eastern Conference is when the West give up, when the West blow out and put their bench on, is what the Eastern Conference looks like right now,
Yeah.
apart from Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
So yeah, I think it'll be Boston or Dallas.
Yeah. I don't know if you're keeping up with it, but Drake or Kendrick?
Drake.
Ooh, interesting.
I go
All right.
Drake because I feel like Drake's like you can pick on him so easily. He's like the fat kid that you pick on and just get to feel bad at the moment. So I think the fact that he's kind of making fun of Kendrick enough to have people questioning, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what about your personal interests? Are you watching any TV shows at the moment? If so, which ones?
I'm watching Game of Thrones.
Nice.
Like, second time watching it, but yeah, it's super cool.
What's the best away stadium you've played at? Any funny stories?
Probably Tasmania, the Tassie court. I like Tassie. I don't like Perth because Perth are actually their fans are actually like Perth fans. They're not
Yeah.
actually basketball fans. They used to love Perth and the Wildcats, so that was pretty hostile. But I like Tassie because it has that feel of a good away crowd, but it's also not that intimidating when you get there because they're still good people. But my favorite memory there is it was my first time down there. I think it was our third game, and I hit 3 threes in the first 2 quarters. I had 14 points at halftime. Check out just before half, and we're on the bench, and the fans behind us, and that one's walking past, and someone's walking past, and he leans over the railing and he says, "Come on, Toohey, I need you to get 15." So he says that, I'm on 14. Then I go like 0 for 6 in the second half and
Oh
finish on
no.
14. And if anyone ever asks me, I'll say I did it on purpose. But yeah, I couldn't buy a bucket in the half, and I think we lost as well, unfortunately.
Sold his multi.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. I think I know the answer to this one, but I want to hear it from you. Who's winning the 23-24 NBL chip? Sorry, 24-25 NBL chip.
Oh, there you go. Got to be Sydney Kings.
There you go.
100%. Like the answer. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for joining us, Alex. We appreciate it. We love chatting. And good luck with next season. And hopefully the Sydney Kings come away with the chip.
Absolutely. No worries. Thank you, fellas.